in the summer, you've always talked about the key points on your team you wanted to address. Do you feel like you've done that now?
I do. We had a punch list we wanted to go through at the end of the year last time I saw you guys, and I probably was, you could tell I was adamant on what kind of changes I wanted to make, and I believe we did that. Starting with, a new coach, goaltending, depth D, harder D, revamping the defense, looking for our bottom six to look a little bit different than vanilla, I think I used before. And we've checked those boxes for sure and added more depth. That's what we wanted to do.
How important was it to get Jacob Markstrom on your team before? I mean, yes, for obvious reasons, but also before free agency opened to allow you that flexibility.
Oh, it was huge. It's funny, we haven't talked about Jacob, so it's been a while. But it was important to me to obviously address that need, to build a tandem with Jake Allen, which I think everybody would agree we've done a fine job there. But the money was important, and getting him at a discount so I could do other things was very important. So, like I've said in other interviews, working with the Calgary Flames this time around was, we both wanted to get a deal done, and we did.
One of the things I think that everyone here would agree with is when we talk to all the free agents who have come in, they talked about your commitment to getting this team better to a different level and their excitement about it. What are your pitches like to these players when you're trying to lure them here that you think gets them so excited?
Well, I think it started a few years back when Dougie Hamilton picked us and Andre Palat picked us. We've drafted well. When you draft in a Jack Hughes and a Nico Hischier and a Jesper Bratt, and then the Timo Myers want to join that type of group. It's nice. It's a nice feeling that New Jersey's a destiny for top players. When your phone rings from agents on July 1st of top players in the league, you're building something here, and you're building a place where players want to come because they see a chance and opportunity to win.
Tom, just the latest on Dawson Mercer and the negotiations there?
Yeah, we're going to start that. His agent and I knew after the July 1st we would get going. Dawson, we feel, is a long-term player for us. Where we go with term is going to be judged on the dollars, and we only have so much money to spend. I like the fact that where we project him to be still gives us flexibility with our cap to continue to accrue and the possibility of adding down the road.
And the rest of the archives too, Nico Dawes and Norwood.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We'll get to those guys. In short order here. It's when you get through the draft, the draft's here, and then next thing you know, you're cramming for July 1st. Your RFAs are the last on the totem pole to get to because they're not going anywhere. So yeah, we'll get to all of those guys.
And there were some reports out there that linked you guys to top six forward or things like that. Is that something you tried to get done? Is that something you still want to try to get done?
Well, again, I think when you look at top six, I think we have plenty top six players. And I also think we've got enough complementary top six players that can play with true top six guys. And I'm not sure how many teams in the league actually have top six guys, right? So, the Thomas Tatar trade was a player that very familiar with. We know he's played really well with top six guys on our team. So it just gives us more flexibility. But when your phone rings, like we talked earlier, from true top six players, and you listen to them because they identified you as a team that they think they would really fit. And then it's a matter of working out the details of a contract.
And obviously in getting Brett Pesce, there's a bunch of right shot defensemen on this team in the pipeline. I mean, is there anything that needs to be addressed there, addressing the logjam there, or is it just having Casey cook another year in the AHL?
Listen, the American Hockey League is a tough league, Ryan. I'm not sure if you've ever been down and watched the game, but it's a tough league. So, Seamus, to just obviously think that you can make that jump right away, being down there is going to be the best. However long he's going to be there, it doesn't matter. We just know we have a good one that we're going to. If we have to overcook him, we overcook him. That's better for us, and it's going to be better for him. As far as the right side up top, the Kovacevic thing just literally dropped on my lap on July 1st. Got a call from Montreal. You're looking for right shot D, maybe. When you can add another 6'5", heavy, hard player in the depth, and really someone who can push to make sure our other right shots are going to be playing on their toes every night. So, no, I mean, when you look at our top 7, it's completely different than what we've had in the past.
What lessons do you take away from, in trading away Schmidt and Holtz in the Paul Cotter deal? What lessons in player development do you take away from that?
Well, I mean, we're not here to point blame on anybody. I can look at myself and say maybe Alexander Holtz should have been in the American Hockey League 2 years ago when we had 112 points. But I felt that play development can also occur at the National Hockey League level when you're practicing every day with the Nico Hischies, the Bratts, and the Jack Hugheses, and you're shooting on NHL goalies, and you're going up against NHL defensemen versus being down and just being able to score down in the American Hockey League. Being pushed is development. I don't think it's any one person, any one division. It's, I'd like to think the players also look in the mirror and say, I could be better. But at the end of the day, we were at a standstill, quite honest, with Alex. We believe he will have success where he goes. But for us today and what we wanted to accomplish, adding a guy like Paul Cotter, who we believe has upside and has a little bit of Miles Wood in him. He can skate, he's physical, just the pieces and the identity that we were looking for at the cost of an Alexander Holtz. And with Schmid, I wish him all the best. Like I told him, to get a pick included with that. We feel our goalie depth now is pretty good. We have Malik coming next year. It was important for us to get that second round pick this year to draft who we believe was the top goaltender in the draft, and it just allows us to move on from a guy like Schmidt, and he did well here, but we feel we've got the depth to do that.
You mentioned bringing Thomas Tatar. Was the idea of his familiarity that he worked so well with players like Hischier and Mercer, and maybe that's what you want to try to do in September, or is that maybe a decision for them?
I think that's going to be up to Sheldon. Again, optionality is important for a coach. In the depth, we know he can play in the top 6. Other opportunities that we were looking at in the price range we were looking at, we didn't feel we had that, he can pop up and play there. We absolutely felt he could help us in the third and fourth line roles. But we just felt with, again, the familiarity with Thomas and how he played with Nico was comforting for sure. And again, just with depth comes competition, and with competition, you usually bring the best out of your athletes.
And, replacing Toffoli's goal-scoring ability, it doesn't seem like there's anyone clear-cut. Is that going to be a by-committee thing, or you look at one player here and say, this is someone who could replace that?
To be honest with you, I went through my punch list with you. What was the one thing I didn't talk about? I wasn't worried about offense with this group. We've got enough offense here. With that being said, a guy like Dawson Mercer is going to get an opportunity to continue to grow and explode, hopefully, in that. And then it's by committee. You're hoping the Tatars and the Cotters and the Nasons are all chipping in that 15 goal to make up a goal difference. But at the end of the day, Jack, Nico, Timo, Bratter, more from Palat offensively. We feel we'll continue to get that.
It seemed like once you identified Jacob Markstrom was your guy, what was it about him that made you say, okay, I need this goaltender?
Well, I think, obviously his past. You looked at, to be honest, last year he was on the market early and he wasn't playing great. Then he started to play really, really, really well. And he's probably at that time the top goalie in the league, on his way to being a Vezina candidate. And then talks got halted. And so when I look back and think, what did we add there? I think we add a true starter is what we were looking for. Somebody who has been exposed to high danger shots and showed well. We're trying to shore up our D and our D zone and the way we play, that'll help eliminate those, high danger shots that he's not going to have to face. And I think that, a lot of it is the desire to be here. He had a complete no move last year, and there was a lot of desire to be here. And that means a lot to me. We talked about wanting to be in New Jersey. This is a guy who wants to be here. And that to me trumps a lot of things.
And just, updates on injuries for Jack Hughes and Dougie Hamilton.
Everybody's doing great. He's 100%. Dougie, Jack, I just saw Jack at the awards. He looks great. He's on track to be ready to go in September. Same with Timo.
Morning, Tom.
Morning, Mike.
Fair to say that the moves you made to this point are not only for regular season success, but for great success in the playoffs as well.
We're just trying to take one step at a time. Playoffs is here, but we need to get there first. And every game's a playoff game. That should be our mentality to be ready for the playoffs. But at the end of the day, we got to get there first. We have to get there. We have to play the right way. We have to be committed. We have to be connected, and we have to be highly competitive. First and foremost, we have to follow directions when it comes to systems. We have to be trustworthy for one another. And I think now that we've created a more mature team, I think the older voices will help guide the younger guys to really the right way to play. And I think last year, in hindsight, will be the silver lining with these guys. Because they're hungry. Our young players are hungry, and they realize that they're not getting younger, they're getting older, and now is the time. So let's start with, not put the cart before the horse, have a great camp, great start to the season, and just worry about today versus worrying about tomorrow. Tomorrow will take care of itself, meaning the playoffs if we play the right way.
So I guess a follow-up to that is how much more confident do you feel entering this season than you did last season?
I was very confident last year. I was very confident. Growth in certain areas of our organization positionally just didn't grow. It didn't happen. And, we knew we were going to take a step back with young players like Luke and Kevin Ball, but felt we'll take 2 steps forward as we move this process along. And then add Simone and that group who wasn't going to play his 10 games, to be quite honest. Sliding contract for me is important when you're conducting business. The funny thing happened. He came in for Dougie Hamilton and played extremely well, and we saw the upside and we saw the future of this organization. And he had his ups and downs. So, what's really important moving forward is those players, those 2 in particular, can take that next step. We don't need them to put this team on their back or this decor. We've surrounded them with veterans that have been here and there and understand what it takes to get to where we want to go. So as long as they take that next step, then we're going to be good. So I'm really confident in that. I'm very confident. I'm more confident today than I was last year, but I was confident last year. So it tells you how confident I am right now.
And finally, Tom, obviously you have a real nice goalie here. But is there any, I guess the word concern, or is it on your radar that Markstrom is 34, Allen is 33, and you want to get through an entire 82-game season here? Is there any is that kind of on your radar?
No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. Their past has proven that they've played a lot of hockey games. They don't sit much. Maybe a soft tissue issue here or there, but no, it doesn't concern me at all.
Tom, is the current plan for Paula and Lazar to be down the middle, 3rd and 4th line?
Yeah, right now that's the plan.
Do you guys look at Cotter as someone who can slide in and play center?
Yeah, I mean, again, the versatility that he brings to the table is welcoming. I probably don't see him as a center, but knowing that he can play center is a bonus.
And can you just talk about Sheldon's role in recruiting free agents? I know Nason talked about him, some of the other guys did. how important he was in helping you bring in people?
Oh, extremely important because the players aren't coming to play for me. I'm not the coach. I'm just the manager trying to set the table here. And, listening to, in Steph's case, listening to the passion that Sheldon had for him as a player, we were looking for that right shot that can help us on the power play. He's done that, a dirty player, the guy who gets in the trenches. And, someone who played on a team that expects to win every day was important. So listening to Sheldon's, where Sheldon saw Nason on our list was important for Steph as well. So when you can have a coach volunteer his time and promote what we're trying to do here, it's a bonus.
And then with Pesci, the assumption would be that Pesci's going to play with Luke. Can you just talk about why that's a good fit for Luke developing?
I have no idea who's going to play with who. It's not going to matter to me. Luke has to take a step in defending. If he's going to play with Pesci, he's going to play against top line. So he has to take a step and really respect the fact that defending comes first over offense. So if he's going to play with a player like that, that's his role. But right now, we haven't even talked about what pairs look like with those 6 and 7 with Kovacevic.
Hi, how are you?
Hey.
I was just wondering, a lot of the players that you brought in, they're around the same age, they kind of have the same experience. Was that something that was premeditated by you and your team, or was it just a happy coincidence?
I think, when you get to free agency, you obviously can see some ages like this, but it was important for the experience. I've talked about, men, and, our average age on our team was always bottom 5. You do need experience, and you do need, heavy voices that have experienced certain areas of the season, and we've done that. So that's just ironic.
As of July 1st, you were eligible to actually talk contract extension with Luke Hughes. Has there been any thought about doing that maybe early?
My brain wasn't on the extension on July 1st. I was trying to improve the team here. Luke's a long-time Devil. So we will get to that and just kind of see where both groups are at financially, and our projections for where the cap's going and what we have will all depend on that. But no, I think Luke knows that we feel he's a lifer here, a long-time Devil.
Last one for me. I know that you brought in a lot of big, heavy players. I don't think any of them were under 6 foot, 200 pounds. That was by design, or maybe just coincidence there?
I would say coincidence. We wanted to get harder, and usually the harder players are the bigger players. And I don't know if you've stopped by development camp here, but we got a lot of big boys this year, bigger than I've ever seen. So I think that's just ironic. There was no set mandate to go out and get 6'2" and above players. I just think it's ironic. But when you talk about the things that we needed here, usually the package comes in a bigger frame.
I know you obviously talked about Mercer and getting everything done with the RFAs. Are you done on the open market?
Yeah, right now I am, yeah. Cap space-wise, we feel like we're in a good place where we can stay flexible if something was to come down the road for us and be able to trade. We got some assets in draft capital right now. So we actually feel lucky and fortunate that if something was to come along, we could be in that game.
So on July 3rd, what will your message be to the fans?
I think they're going to be proud of what we put together here. I know they've been proud of the skill set, what we can accomplish offensively. But when you look at this team, I'm sure there's some reminiscing of the past Devil teams, of being heavy, being harder to play against, identity players on your 3rd and 4th line, people who respect that type of game and know what their limits are and what their potential is. So I think when they look at this group, it's a well-rounded group and hopefully something that reminds them of the past.
When you were a player, albeit it was like sort of a different time with a lot of these things, when you looked for where you were going and all those things, or just around the league, did you really look at what general managers were doing in terms of their commitment? Because I think one of the things, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, that really struck me was how much these players who you brought in talked about the job that you're doing and following the commitment of what you're doing. Did you look for that, and what does it mean to you when you see players talk about that on their day one with this franchise?
I guess, quite honestly, I don't think of that. I have a job to do. I think when you break it down, strip it down, and you start bringing it back up, by drafting well and drafting the guys that I've talked about that are leading us right now because they're at their prime ages. The fun part is now. It's building around the edges and building the complementary guys that what you need. This is the fun part, because now you're putting together a contender and you're checking off all the different boxes that contenders have. Like I said, the last thing I was worried about was the offense on this team. It was everything else that we needed to build up and check boxes, and we've done that.
Tom, before the draft, you were open about potentially trading the 10th overall pick.
Mm-hmm.
Did Celia falling to you at 10 nix that? Was there potential that was going to happen?
There was a couple of opportunities, but these certain teams with certain players valued a plus to it, and we were okay with that if it made sense, depending on what that plus was. And as the picks started to get off, players started to go off the board, I remember I turned to Dan McKinnon next to me because we really liked the Finnish center as well. I just said, what do you think? The 6'7" guy, the defenseman or the center? And he looked at me like, the defenseman's 6'7", he can skate and he's mean. And I'm like, all right, we'll take the D. So I wasn't trading that.
Tom, just one quick one. Have you spoken with the leadership group since the exit meetings? And I'm curious if you have spoken with some of those guys. As they see the playoffs unfold and they're not in it, you talked about the silver lining of the commitment they might have, just what they have told you about.
I haven't personally, but I know they have with other people in the organization that, the feedback I'm getting is the excitement, the hunger. It started with hiring Sheldon. And then when we got Markstrom, certain people's phones were just blowing up. And then adding the two big defensemen, the harder defensemen, and bringing Tats back, quite honestly, and Nace, there's a lot of excitement, But at the end of the day, a lot of work has to go into this. And like I talked about before, it's all for nothing if we can't, connect, compete, and commit. But I know we will.